The Los Angeles Rams. Is it going to be a dream season or a dream disaster? Like we know in Philadelphia. Brendan Albert is here. I am Adrian Fedke. The Rams, this is the big story here in the NFC West. We also have the 49ers. The Seahawks look like they're about to be out of the running. They look like they're becoming the Colts of the AFC. And then you got the Cardinals who are just meh.
Yeah, I don't think anything you said there is wrong. I mean, this is certainly the Rams' division to win. I mean, they went all in on making the moves now, trying to win when that quarterback is still under the rookie deal. And even if you look at it, you go back to the last several years, almost all the teams in the Super Bowl, except, of course, for the Patriots, have been getting the Super Bowl while their quarterback was under that rookie contract. So I totally get why the Rams say, hey, let's strike now. We have some assets to move around and try to win. I get it. I totally understand why they're doing it. Yeah,
there's two sides to this because they are in such an easy division, I think. It depends what you think of the 49ers. They're on everybody's, like, under the radar team, sleeper lists, whatever. But with the Rams, there's two things. You got the easy division, but then I'm also worried about all these personalities in the same room. Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, this dream team type scenario. I saw this in Philadelphia 2012. I've seen this in 2000 with the Redskins. It doesn't seem to ever work. When you get all these personalities, you bring them all in, and you try it out, and it just doesn't work. What do you think?
You're not wrong there, Adrian. I think the one thing, if I'm going to be, trying to be positive here, Wade Phillips has certainly been around the block several times in a row now.
And so has Andy Reid too.
So has Andy Reid. You're right there, Tony or Adrian. Excuse me, but I would say this, man. Like that absence there of Aaron Donald is really noticeable because he is the son of that defense. Everyone rotates around him. So I hear you. I totally get where things are going. But you know what? As long as you win, these personalities don't usually become an issue. It's usually when you start to lose that all of a sudden you see all the cracks, all the little dinks in the armor.
Yeah, they just better win. That's what it is there, obviously. I mean, Marcus Peters, Akeem Talib, they're just filled with all of these potential cancers. But if they win, they won't be a cancer at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's get into the offense now. So they go from Jeff Fisher and scoring 14 points per game, which I believe was last. They double that total pretty much. They add 100 yards per game under Sean McVay. So my question for you is this, because everybody shits on Jeff Fisher. Was it all Jeff Fisher or was it a combination of other things?
It's a combination of other things. I mean, the offense got a lot more playmakers around them, in that second year there. But here's the crazy stat to know. The Rams are the first team ever in Super Bowl history, or Super Bowl era, I should say, that went from dead last in offense to first in offense in the consecutive years. So, yeah, I mean, certainly got to say the Jeff Fisher criticism certainly sounds fair, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that bringing in guys like Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins, Cooper Kupp, all that type of stuff, and then adding in Haynesworth there to be your left tackle, those are massive pieces there. So I'm not saying that Jeff Fisher would have been scoring every bit as many points, but I don't think he would have been dead last if he had a little bit better of a arsenal around Jared Goff that he had in year two versus what Jared Goff had in his rookie year.
Yeah, I'm looking at that offensive line, the improvement there and the strides that they made. Andrew Whitworth was obviously the big acquisition at left tackle, helps out your quarterback, helps out Jared Goff. So I think it's a combination of other things. And I know, people want to shit on Jeff Fisher, but, hey, this guy turned Steve McNair into something, right? So maybe he does know a little bit what he's doing. Maybe he's lost touch because, the game has changed. But I don't think it was all Fisher. I think it was they had no weapons. They had no offensive line. It was just a shit show. At least Sean McVay came in there and he improved some things.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an apples-to-apples conversation. The roster was completely different from Fisher's year to McVay's year, so you have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, I mean, to go up in points, that's expected. To go from dead last to first, that really shows that, hey, you got the offensive genius. You got the offensive staff there. Let's load up on the defense. Let's trade those draft picks, get Peters, get Talib in there, and let's try to get after it now and win a Super Bowl in the next year or two.
Yeah, so people hated on Jeff Fisher. And they talked about, those things. But offensive line, another example of where it helped out, Todd Gurley.
Yep.
the last couple of years before last, I mean, we were wondering, like, well, what's wrong with Todd Gurley? There was nothing wrong with Todd Gurley. When you have trash to run behind who can't generate you any holes, anything, you're not going to run for much. Well, last year, you get Andrew Whitworth until you improve your offensive line. Look what happened. He led the league in yards from scrimmage.
Absolutely, Adrian. And then also add in the fact that now I actually can scare a defense to throw the ball down the field. You're not going to put 8-9 in the box and just dare me to throw. Now that you have guys, Sammy Watkins, say what you will about him, he still had, I think, 6 touchdowns last year, and he still can run straight. Now you lose Sammy Watkins, okay, bring in Brandon Cooks, another guy who can run straight down the field. That's at least going to hold those safeties. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, pretty darn good receiving core there. Certainly not elite. There's a lot of teams that are better, but I would still say it's a good receiving core, certainly good enough to be contender for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he takes the top off the defense, as you explained, Brandon Cooks, and that allows Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods to work underneath. So that's where it helps out there. And we can kind of go to the offensive line, too. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but other acquisitions, they acquired John Sullivan last year. That was big for the center spot. They got back Rob Havenstein at right tackle. So improvements, man, along the offensive line. I think that right there, that unit was, I think, the biggest reason for the improvements last year for the team.
I 100% agree. I always think about this, the offensive line. A good offensive line you never talk about, honestly.
Yeah.
When you're talking about them, 99% of the time, it's usually for bad reasons. And that's just the honest truth. You want those silent praises, and that's exactly what was happening with the LA Rams last year. Huge bump up in the offensive line play.
I keep talking about it because I want to remind people just how bad they were just 2 years ago. Greg Robinson was your left tackle. Okay? All right.
I mean, let's not forget here, Adrian. You want to talk how bad they were? They were the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. Now, yeah, I know they traded up for it a little bit, but that's how bad they were. The Eagles, a couple years ago, got the 2 pick. I know the Eagles traded up a little bit, but a lot of people are saying, well, there's not enough, even talent in the league. You have the Eagles and the Rams. 3 years ago, were in the bottom barrel, and now they're both Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. And there was one thing that the Rams never addressed. And they run the 3-4, obviously, with Wade Phillips. Their outside linebackers are not very good. Samson Ebukam and Matt Ngakere. Ngakere was like a bench guy last year who, got some pressure on the quarterback, but now you're asking him to be a starter. Where the Rams really struggled last year, if you're a team that runs a zone scheme, you run a lot of stretch plays, you get to the boundaries, that is how you run on the Rams. Obviously, you can't run up the middle. You got Donald, Brockers, and Sue, but you run those stretch plays, you run sweeps. That's how you get your yardage. That's why the Rams were 28th in run defense last year.
Here's the problem with the Rams defense. And Adrian, your zone scheme, your sweep, anything outside, you're 100% right. Here's what happens with the Rams. Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, yeah, they absolutely can break through a double and triple team and make it a 3-yard loss. They're not going to do it every single play. They just physically can't. No one can do that every single play. So because of that, yeah, it might be a 3-yard loss. The next time might be a 30-yard gain because you're perfectly right here, Adrian. Linebacking crew, outside edge guys, when you look at the pressure for the Rams defense, it's going to come from Sue and Donald. And don't get me wrong, I would much rather have those guys than not have them. But they didn't really do much to address the edge pressure and edge run defense. You got a guy like there, Mark Barron, who used to be a strong safety for Alabama. He's not a blitzer by any means, but he has to improve his run defense now because there's not a lot of edge help here. So if I am critical of the Rams defense, linebacker crew, edge, absolutely is fair to be critical about them.
Yeah. On paper, the secondary looks outstanding. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib. But my question to you, since you're the football guy, if you can't pressure the quarterback, how hard is it going to be on the back end to stop the pass?
It's tough. I mean, there's this kind of war of visions here, right? So let's think about when the Panthers were doing it. The Panthers were trying to get after it, and they had, of course, they had Josh Norman there as the one corner, but then they had a good front four that could get after him. Now you look here at the Rams, really good 2 front guys. Everything else in that front 7 is just average, honestly.
Yeah.
But you have 2 all-pro level corners there. LaMarcus Joyner is a fantastic safety there over the top. So they do have a lot of pieces here, but I'm not ready to say this defense is going to be a top 5 led defense. I would much rather defenses like the Eagles, like the Vikings, like even the Chargers we talked about. I think it's going to be a very good defense, and I certainly think this is a defense that's going to be good enough to win games and win you a Super Bowl, but it's going to come down to turnovers for them. I don't think the linebacking crew and the edge pressure is enough to be a top 5 defense this season, unless we're looking at Aaron Donald as a potential MVP candidate, which is possible, to be fair.
Maybe this is a defense that takes the leap next year. It kind of goes back to that theory of what I was saying yesterday. It's the year after you think the breakout's going to happen. That's when it usually happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a very fair thing, Adrian, because remember, they didn't have draft picks this year.
Yeah.
They burned them for Cooks. They burned them other places, which is okay. I understand why they did it, but you don't have the draft picks to get the edge guys. You didn't really get anyone in free agency, so now it becomes, okay, where's this pressure going to come from on the edges?
Yeah. All right. You got prediction for the Rams? Where you got them?
I'm going to hold off on mine because I want to go the whole division at once.
Okay. All right. So I'll hold off too then. All right. We'll move to San Francisco. The Niners. This is literally everybody's surprise team, which is why I'm going to have them at 8-8 because this is the way it works.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, isn't it when all of a sudden the bandwagon gets full, the bandwagon breaks down halfway through?
Yeah. They start 0-9. They won 6 of the last 7. I understand the hype. Jimmy G does look like the real deal. But there are a lot of holes still on the roster, I think. On defense, they still got holes. Do they have a running back? We'll see about Marquise Goodwin. Is their line good enough? I don't know. We'll see.
There's a lot of uncertainty here for me. I mean,
yes.
Let's talk first about Jimmy G. Don't get me wrong. Looks like a meteor. Looks awesome. And you know what? With Shanahan, I certainly buy the value. I don't think this is like a Matt Flynn situation.
Yeah, I think Jimmy G's the real deal. I think Kyle Shanahan is the real deal.
I agree. And because of the pairing, that's why I'm confident in this. If it was one or the other, maybe I'm a little less confident, to be honest. But because of the pairing, I'm confident. Offensive line, Staley there, he's not getting any younger. They bring in McGlinchey there to play right tackle. I think, honestly, he could eventually swing the left tackle in the near future. Interior, the offensive line is good, not great. Brought in Jonathan Cooper, a guy who was a former first-round pick. Just had a little nicks and injuries, and that happens in the league. Hopefully he can stay healthy because if so, that's a really nice bring in there too. So the offensive line is good, not great. But, Adrian, I have no confidence in Jerick McKinnon. I honestly don't understand why people are all of a sudden anointing him as this next breakout guy, because if he was the breakout guy, why hasn't he done it yet?
He's like a third down change of pace back. He's perfect to pair with an in-between the tackles runner, which is what we saw last year with he and Latavius Murray. I don't think he's the guy that's going to carry the load. I think you need to pair him with somebody.
I'm with you. I have a hard time thinking a guy who's been a rotation back all of a sudden becomes this fantasy stud like we're seeing in all these fantasy drafts and everything. And I get it. The offense he goes to is a great situation. I totally get all that. But at the same time, I haven't seen him even being a lead back in a committee, and now I'm supposed to believe he's going to be a bell cow fantasy stud. Yeah. I just have a hard time buying that. Maybe I'm just too much of a pessimist, though.
Yeah. The Niners fans will tell you that Matt Breida is good enough, but I don't know.
Maybe. Look, I'm gonna say right now, I'm not watching enough Niners games to say yes or no definitively, but I will say this. If he was, I feel like I would have heard a little bit more about him except for the Bay Area media people.
Yeah. He led all undrafted running backs in rushing yards. So there's like his little nugget there. All right. You know who we did forget on the offensive line? Weston Richburg. He's an interesting name because I feel like he either hits or he doesn't. Last year, I think he came off a bad season, but the year before, he was outstanding. So maybe they hit on him.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you bring that into the center of your offensive line, and then you have two guards there in Laken Thompson and then Jonathan Cooper. Also, you have Joshua Garnett as another guy in the mix. Not a bad interior offensive line by any means. I mean, you're right there. You're 4 deep fighting for 3 positions, 2 pretty darn good tackles. I think it's a pretty good offensive line. I would say this is an offensive line that could make a huge jump into next season. And, of course, you know what? If I'm going to be positive, Paul, I'll go to Jerick McKinnon. He's got a pretty darn good offensive line in front of him, good quarterback, good offensive coordinator. Okay, I'm a little more confident in it, but I'm still not ready to say he's going to be a top 10 back.
Yeah. Marquise Goodwin, is he more than a one-trick pony?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. But the one trick he does is really freaking good, considering this guy, he was an Olympic triathlete here. So his one trick is not just good for the NFL; it's world level good here.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have Pierre Garçon, the old vet who catches everything in there. Made the surprising draft pick there of Dante Pettis, and I only say that, Adrian, because I saw him more as just a return guy. So I'm a little curious to see here. But again, Shanahan's one of those guys that he has earned my confidence before I will criticize him. He's earned that right. Same thing with Sean McVay.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. They go from being the worst run defense in 2016 to being 22nd, and they go from last in total defense to 24th. So baby steps.
Baby steps is right. But you know what? They invested heavily on this defensive line the last several years with the first-round pick.
3 straight first-round picks.
Yep, and then you know what? 3 of them are starting there too, which is exactly what you want. Solomon Thomas had kind of a rough year last year. I wouldn't say he solidified that he was a first-round pick, but I'm not worried about it. It's pretty darn good defensive line there. And then you get to the linebacker crew. Reuben Foster looks great when he's on the field. So that's kind of what we know. And then you have the Malcolm Smith situation. He's been a roller coaster, man. His whole career, every year I'd say I think he's great. He takes his dip down, then he's great, then he takes a dip down. So I'm not ready to ride the Malcolm Smith roller coaster to say he's a stud. But I'll tell you what, as long as Reuben Foster plays, Adrian, you got a future middle linebacker there in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They bring in Richard Sherman. We'll see what he has left in the tank. I did like Akello Weatherspoon, the former Colorado product. So, I guess they're making strides there in secondary, I guess. Jimmy Ward is there too still. I guess he's playing corner and not safety. Tart is a safety still. Adrian Colbert is their other guy. This Colbert guy was like a 7th round pick for them last year, and he was pretty solid for a rookie 7th rounder, but now he's starting, so we'll see.
Yeah, I took that more as a slight to Jimmy Ward than as a praise to him. And I say that because Jimmy Ward was drafted out of NIU as a tweener safety corner guy, and now he's moving to the slot. I think we're ready to completely say, hey, he was a first-round bust. He never should have been drafted as a first-round guy in the first place, but it is what it is. Back 7, I don't know. I agree with you, Adrian. I like Witherspoon out of Colorado. I think Sherman still has enough to get it done, but I don't think he's nearly the lockdown corner. But to be honest, I don't think he has to be. I don't think you have to be an elite-level corner to still make an impact. Back 4 here, not a great group. Not terrible, but I wouldn't say they're elite level either.
Yeah. All right, we will quickly go through the other 2 teams in the division. I know you don't have a lot of time today, so we'll quickly go to Seattle now. And I brought the Colts comparison earlier. Is it fitting? I think the Seahawks could be very, very bad.
I think so too, Adrian. I have this team as a potential biggest dropper in terms of talent here, in terms of wins and losses too. I just don't get it. I just feel bad for Russell Wilson, honestly. He's getting the Andrew Luck level treatment of, we'll draft another skills player, or we'll do draft big humans to protect your best player, and they just don't do it. It's a big concern I have for the Seahawks.
Do they think that he can just scramble around and keep being a magician forever? I don't get this logic.
Yeah, this is a worry for me, because Russ, to his credit, has never been an injury bug guy. But at the same time, if you just get smacked in the head over and over and over again, eventually you're going to go down.
Yeah. So the offensive line stinks. Obviously, they've had a lot of players either retire or just go. Richard Sherman's not there anymore. You had Cam Chancellor retire. Who else? They've lost like everybody on that defense. If you look at that depth chart now, you won't even know these guys.
Yeah, this went from one of the most recognizable defenses in the NFL to one of the least recognizable defenses in the NFL. And this is just a reminder of the NFL's business. That's as simple as it is. I'm surprised the Seahawks haven't traded Earl Thomas because, I don't see them as a Super Bowl contender. I don't even see them as a wild card contender.
I don't see them anywhere close to the picture.
So I'm thinking, hey, sell, sell, sell. Let's kind of mortgage assets, get whatever we can, and just build for the future.
Who's left? All they have is like Wagner and Thomas and KJ Wright.
Yeah, and even KJ Wright took a big step back last year. The Griffin brothers are going to be, the kind of up and coming guys in Seattle, and I'm real excited to kind of see how that goes there. I will say this: Byron Maxwell, good, not great corner. I mean, he's certainly not someone I think.
Don't tell Philadelphia he's a good corner.
Well, okay. What are you expecting from him? Because if you're expecting a 2 or 3, I buy that.
I never thought he was like horrible as people have fully suggested. He was just overpaid. That was the thing.
I think that's completely fair, Adrian. It all comes with your expectations. I think he's a 2-3 corner. I don't think he's a 1-2 level starting corner in the NFL.
Yeah, there you go.
So your expectations. And then your boy, Griffin there, you banged the table for him when he was coming out. You said, look, this is going to be a stud corner coming out of UCF.
I did. I'm not right about everything, but I was right about him.
You were right about him.
He looks legit. You know who else is legit on that defense? I like Frank Clark. I think he's something. But the rest of that D-line, you have Jerron Reed, okay, he's all right. Nash Jones, okay, maybe he's okay. Brandon Jackson, like who? This defense is now filled with no names. Barkevius Mingo is starting in Seattle.
Deion Jordan, another former guy that was, always linked with the Eagles there. He's apparently having this resurgence in the offseason. I mean,
yeah.
Athletically, he has it. I mean, like I won't knock it, but I mean, he's year 4 or 5 in the NFL and hasn't been able to stick anywhere. Usually, not a good sign.
Yeah. All right, I guess we can talk about the offense. Oh man, I'm looking at this line. I mean, you got Dwayne Brown, you added him. Jermaine Ifedi has been kind of a bust. They signed DJ Fluker, okay. Justin Britt, he's solid. Dude, just bad. This is bad.
Yeah. Again, it's not a great offensive line. Did you have a problem with them taking Penny in the first round, Adrian?
I wouldn't have taken him. There was no reason they needed to go running back in the first round. They could have waited on him. They could have gone for a second. That's where you should have gone with your lineman right there, was your first round pick.
I agree. I mean, I would have taken Will Hernandez there, right? I mean, get a stud. The biggest issue I had with this was the fact that the Hawks traded back, and I applauded them. I said, look, you got a lot of holes. Trade back, get more picks. Cool, I'm with it. And then you took Rashad Penny, and I was just like, whew. And I'm not high on Rashad Penny. I'll say that right off the jump. I'm not a huge fan of him. I like Sony Michel a whole lot more. But, of course, the medical issue is what you're hearing of why Sony slid. And that's fine. I'm not a huge Rashad Penny fan, but my mindset is pretty clear. Look at what look what the Cowboys did. Build the offensive line, then get the running back. Don't get the running back and then build the offensive line. Because, Adrian, as you and I both know, running backs don't typically become studs in the second contract. They're usually studs in the first contract. And if your offensive line isn't ready for that, then essentially you might have drafted a really talented running back. But if he's going to get hit behind the line for the first 2 or 3 years, you're not going to see the return on investment of him being a first-round pick, and that's why people are going to say, oh, this guy could be a bust.
And what's baffling about this is they know that the Rams went through this with Todd Gurley, and they're not even learning. They're not even listening. They're not doing anything about it. So I just looked at their draft. They drafted 1 tackle.
Yeah.
Marco Jones in the 5th.
Yeah.
That's no bueno. Remember when John Schneider used to get like the treatment of like best GM in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
He ain't the best GM in the NFL no more.
No, it's been a drastic change there too. I mean, look, they went honestly, I might say when we get, old, Adrian, this is one of those defenses you tell folk tales about when you're sitting around at a bar and you talk about how loaded they were, and then you say, they won what, like 3 Super Bowls, 2? And you're like, no, they actually only won 1. And you're like, how did they only win 1? Right? I mean, like, this team was so freaking loaded. It's so disappointing that they only were able to win 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, and the defense, the way that they just decimated the Broncos in that Super Bowl. That to me was like beyond impressive because
Yeah.
that was the year Peyton Manning set the record of touchdowns again, didn't he? Did he set the touchdowns record that year again?
I forget if it was that year or the year they beat the Panthers. I think the year they beat the Panthers, that was the record.
No, that's when he struggled. He was really bad that year.
Oh, okay, then flip that. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that was that year, but yeah, that Super Bowl was just unreal, just how they went. Okay, I'm going through their schedule. Actually, you want to do that at the end, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. We'll quickly go with the Cardinals. You only have 5 minutes. We'll just, what we'll do with the Cardinals? We'll just talk about Josh Rosen, and we both don't even like him anyway.
No, I'm not a huge Josh Rosen fan. I mean, here's the way I look at it. He has issues with concussions, and he has issues with overall mobility. He's going to an offensive line that's not exactly great, has a great running back there, which, is a big benefit. But I just have a hard time seeing how he's all of a sudden going to be durable in the NFL if he wasn't durable in college. So that's a little bit of a concern I have there with Josh Rosen. I think he, unfortunately, is in the second worst situation of all the rookie quarterbacks. I think Allen is in the worst situation because he's going to have to play with no weapons around him. Yeah. At least Arizona has Larry Fitzgerald, David Johnson, and Christian Kirk. So he does have weapons, but I think the offensive line is going to let him get beat around a little bit.
David Johnson returns, so that's good for the Cardinals. I remember being really high on him coming out of, I think it was Northern Iowa, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Northern Iowa.
Yeah, so I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl. I know it was only the Senior Bowl, and I know it was only practices, but I saw this guy. I'm like, man, he looks explosive. So he wound up being my sleeper heading into the draft, and then look, a couple years later, he's like a top 5 running back in the league. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Now, to help the offensive line, they did bring in Justin Pugh, which, is going to be a help. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily a all-pro level guard, but he's certainly a lot better than anything they had there. So there is some help on the way there in Arizona for the offensive line, but still, this is a tough situation because you and I both know Sam Bradford's not going to make it through 5 games, let alone as a starting quarterback. So Rosen's going to have to play sooner rather than later.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even want to talk about this team. Like, this is such a bad, boring team. They go from 3-4 to 4-3. They obviously have the new coach, Steve Wilkes. There's just nothing to be excited about. I just shit on Seattle and how bad they are. Well, I think the Cardinals are probably worse than them.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, if I'm looking at the bright sides, Hassan Reddick, is.
Oh, that's true. All right, yeah. Let's
see how that goes. Budda Baker, I like Budda Baker a lot. He was a Pro Bowler last year.
Yeah.
So there is some bright spots, but then there's also some really big down spots too, like Robert Kimdichie. Huge miss. I mean, it's looked nothing but horrible for there. Of course, Chandler Jones is still a stud there, and Pat P is still there too. But aside from that, it's a defense that wins with speed. This might be one of the fastest defenses in the NFL, which is a good thing, but they don't necessarily do a great job against the run. And that's a big issue in the NFL, especially when you have to play Todd Gurley 2 times a year.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. You have to go. So you want to just quickly do underrated? Actually, we'll do predictions.
Let's do predictions. Go ahead, Adrian.
All right. So my predictions, all right. So I made a video earlier this offseason. I said the Rams weren't going to make the playoffs. But then now logic has hit, and I've realized that the division is so bad that they're going to win it by default. Yeah. So they're going to go 9-7. The 49ers are going to go 8-8. The Cardinals are going to go 5-11, and the Seahawks are going to go
5-11. So you think the Hawks take that much of a step down?
I think they're really, really bad. We'll see, though, if, Russell Wilson is a magician, and he wins a couple games by himself.
I don't think you're wrong there. I think Russ is one of those guys who he wins games more than they should. Very similar to what the Colts were doing for years with Peyton and obviously with Andrew Luck.
Games than Andrew Luck by himself?
Yeah, exactly. It's are those quarterbacks worth 3 or 4 games on their own? Yeah. Is really what we're saying here for offense. Yeah.
They do have a brutal slate. I'm looking at this schedule. It's pretty tough.
What do they got?
So they play Minnesota at Carolina. They play so they play the NFC North. So you got Green Bay on the slate. You've got the AFC West. So that's a tough division. The AFC West is the division you don't want if you're in the NFC.
I agree.
All those other divisions are, like not great. Maybe you don't want to play the AFC South either. I mean, there's like a couple teams there. But the AFC West, you got to deal with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Raiders, those three teams. I mean, those three teams might even make the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I got, Adrian. I got the Rams at 10-6. I got them winning the division. I just have more confidence in them than the Niners because the Niners, they have a couple really bright spots and they have a whole bunch of average spots. So I got them at 10-6. I could see 11-5 too. I don't think that's unrealistic. If they sweep the Niners and split with the Hawks, they go 4-2 right there. Yeah, they'll definitely go 11-5, I think. But Niners 9-7. I certainly think they're moving in the right direction, but I just don't see enough defensive playmakers and enough playmakers on the outside offensively to really scare defenses. So I give them at 9-7. Hawks, I got them at 6-10. And honestly,
you're not far off from me.
No, we're not. Honestly, if you're a Seahawks fan, you should kind of hope they go down because they have been stuck in those years of mediocrity of the 16 to the 22 pick where you're not getting a stud, but maybe you're not necessarily, close enough to trade back and get more value. And the Cardinals, I got them at 5-11. I just have a hard time seeing it, but I do see some bright spots there for Arizona. But if you can't keep your quarterback healthy, I can't have any confidence you as a football team.
Yeah. All right. Let's quickly do underrated hot seat and fantasy. So who's the most underrated player in the NFC West?
This is a good one here, Adrian. I think the most underrated player in the AFC West is going to be Budda Baker. And I mean,
I like that. I like that pick a lot.
We don't often talk about rookies being Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
And Budda Baker was a rookie that was a Pro Bowler. Now, most people are going to say, well, then how the hell is he underrated? Because he did it as a special teams player. He didn't do it as a strong safety. So my point is he is already well known as his special teams ability. His ability on defense is going to be really special. There's a reason that Arizona was okay moving on from the Honey Badger because they thought that Budda Baker could do everything that Honey Badger did in spades, and he can stay on the field. So I have Budda Baker as my most underrated player in the NFC West.
Okay. I'm going to go with Frank Clark, the defensive end of Seattle. And he's gotten lost in the shuffle over the last couple of years. He might even be a double-digit sack guy, if I'm correct. I don't remember if he is off the top of my head or not. But everybody remembers Michael Bennett and all the other guys along the defensive line. Frank Clark, I think he's solid. I'll take him as my underrated guy. Who's on the hot seat?
Pete Carroll. I mean, it's got to be Pete Carroll, and I say this because he's starting to turn into the Andy Reid treatment of where you're starting to hear all the vets say, "We're tired of listening to you. Your message is wearing dull." And he had one Super Bowl. Probably he should have had at least 2, maybe even 3 if you really want to push him. But he's on the hot seat. I don't think this is a stretch here, Adrian. Let's say, for example, Notre Dame or Ohio State fires their head coach this year. Pete Carroll could easily transition right back into the NCAA, and he could be the highest hot name for an NCAA school. So I think Pete Carroll's on the hot seat for 2 reasons. He could get fired, or he might say, you know what, the grass is greener in college. Let me leave now before I get canned.
Okay. I don't know if I necessarily have a hot seat guy. Is it okay to put John Schneider there, I guess?
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess you could say that. But what about Les Snead if he can't get this contract done with Aaron Donald?
Just got done about 5 minutes ago, Adrian.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow. How about that?
Just got the Bleacher Report notification. Yep. No, he definitely – I think with all the moves he made last year as far as to reload that offense, I think that definitely got him off the hot seat. A year ago, if we were talking, Adrian, I would say that's probably fair.
Yeah. All right. Fantasy player, who's your guy?
How are we not talking more about Pierre Garçon? Honestly.
He's always been overlooked. Over like the last 10 years, he's always just gets overlooked every year.
Let me kind of rattle off these numbers that he's had the last several years. 2013, 113 receptions led the NFL. 2014, 68 receptions. 2015, 72 receptions. 2016, 79 receptions. By the way, that 113 year, his offensive coordinator was Shanahan. And in this last year, he missed a whole bunch of games, yes, but he still had 40 receptions before he went down. I have a hard time thinking Pierre Garçon's not going to be a guy who's going to get another 70 receptions year. No, he's not going to be a double-digit touchdown guy. He's probably going to be 3 to 5, 6 range tops. But getting that 60, 70 receptions, how are you not talked about more as a fantasy stud?
Yeah. This is hard for the NFC West. There's not like a lot of potential here. I guess I'll go with Robert Woods. I don't know. Who else do you pick?
Christian Kirk would have been the other one I was thinking there, Adrian, as a guy who could get that 50 receptions as a rookie, especially because he can play from the slot so much. And if Rosen's looking for a lot of slot option type stuff, I don't think there's a rookie in this class that was a better slot receiver than Christian Kirk.
Yeah, Woods got a lot of volume of targets last year. Now they do bring in Brandon Cooks, so that's going to take some away. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. I didn't research before I did the show, so I'm doing this off the seat of my pants.
I just have a hard time in general drafting a receiver in fantasy if they're one of 3 receivers for that team being drafted.
Yeah.
You know, and I would even argue he might be one of 4 because Todd Gurley obviously is every bit as good as a receiver as any of the rest of them there. So
I guess, you know what? I'll go with Todd Gurley because I would take him number 1 overall.
I would too. No doubt in my mind.
How about that? That's the way I'll answer that. Because I don't think Todd Gurley is being taken number 1 by everybody.
I think he should be. I think he should be. But, yeah, I see what you're saying.
People are going Bell most of the time over him. So
no, thank you.
Yeah, same. Agreed. All right, you have to go. Well, I've kept you long enough. I've actually held you hostage.
It's all good, brother.
That's Brendan and Albert. I'm Adrian. Thank you. This is our NFC West predictions. We're probably going to get shit on by Rams fans. Bring it.
Appreciate it, guys.